Welcome to this special edition of the Inspiring Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience and technology. This season, we're spotlighting the winners of the Inspiring Women in CX Awards 2025, trailblazing women transforming customer and employee experiences around the globe. Spanning industries, regions, and roles, their stories are powerful proof that when women lead, transformational change happens. You'll hear firsthand as they share their journeys, insights, and vision for the future of CX. I'm your host, Claire Muscat, and today we're celebrating our Inclusion Award winner and her groundbreaking work making customer experience more equitable, accessible, and human-centered. With a sociology and CX strategy background, she's driven inclusive initiatives at Tivoli Gardens and Copenhagen Airport, founded Incluso Nordic to power community-led learning, and helps organisations turn overlooked barriers into real business impact. Allow me to introduce you to today's inspiring guest, Stina Marcel. Hey, Stina.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Inspiring Women in CX Award Winners podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing good. I'm in good
Amazing.
company. So,
I love you too. So let's start with huge congratulations, Stina. How did it feel to win the Women in CX Inclusion Award this year?
it felt surprising and amazing. Surprising because, I'm in a really small country and who sees me and who cares about what I do? That's kind of the feeling, right? So, yeah, surprising and amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's too much self-deprecation for an award winners podcast.
I know, but
it's incredible what you're doing, and I've been obviously following your journey for some time now, and seeing you open like your latest community with Inclusion Nordic is absolutely incredible. So please do take more credit for this award, because yes, Denmark might be a small country, but you're having a global impact, lady. So obviously you're now on our podcast inspiring other women, but who inspires you personally and why?
It's gonna sound a little cheesy maybe, but honestly what inspires me has been the people that I've interviewed over the past years about, the barriers they experience in customer experience. And so I've also done interviews on employee experience. So I've interviewed people with, a variety of different types of disabilities, LGBT plus people that have a different ethnic background, etc., about what barriers do they encounter in customer and employee experiences. And those stories have just been, super inspirational, and has also kind of twisted my CX career, because I went from probably working on CX in the very sort of traditional sense to realizing the business potential in trying to design for the edges, because if you can remove friction for the customers that feel the most friction, you make your experience much smoother for everybody. So like, to try and really boil it down, that's kind of the epiphany that I've kept having across all of those different types of conversations. So yeah, it's customers and employees that have inspired me the most.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, like the level of insight you've been able to glean from doing those interviews has been hugely important, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we go on. So thinking about your LinkedIn announcement post that you shared when you won the award, dedicating the win to customers who are never considered in the standard solution, you said the ones who have to adjust their voice, their words, their behaviours just to get the same service that everybody else receives. To those who are misunderstood by self-service systems, call centre or frontline, not because they're difficult, but because their experience was never designed with them in mind. Can you tell us a bit more about why you made that specific dedication?
I think way too many companies are designing this, like they'll work with standard personas with differences, right? But never really looking beyond that. And I think, both from a business perspective, if you can design your solution so that it's good for those who encounter most friction, it'll, like I just said, improve for everybody. So that's the one thing. But the flip side is, if we then take not the business perspective, but the customer perspective, is that I have heard so many. So the first time I did these types of interviews was when I was with Copenhagen Airport. I was the service excellence director, and I was developing this disability awareness course. So I mapped the customer experience seen from that perspective. And there wasn't one person that I interviewed who didn't talk about one or another barrier who would either make them choose not to fly or not to buy stuff in the airport because parts of the experience was too stressful, right? And I've heard the same type of story across all sectors. So I've interviewed people about their experience with insurance companies where, maybe you're dyslexic. I don't understand what they write to me. And I have to say, a lot of insurance companies, I have a master's degree in sociology and an IQ that isn't, that is well above the average. And I don't always understand the letters I get from my insurance company, right? So if you could design that communication to target someone who needs, text to be simple and who needs to get straight to the point and not legalized language, etc. If you can twist your mind to design with that, you create better accessibility for your customers, a better service, and maybe you'll even catch more customers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I say plain English, obviously plain Danish in your sense, but plain English is good for everybody, right? And there's been so much research about, the simpler something is to understand, the better the response from the customer, no matter if they've got dyslexia or not. So if you write something for someone who's dyslexic, you're going to make it easier for everybody to understand. I was just thinking about my experience in my Sainsbury's days. I was in charge of customer experience design. And initially we started with, I think probably like just a set of assumptions that nobody had any barriers. Like, so we created like this whole kind of CX design program in mind with personas, all the usual stuff. And then I built this inclusive design toolkit that we kind of layered on top of our standard normie one. So we were able to think about visual impairment, and there's a massive scale, right? So from being completely blind through to you're out shopping and you've just like forgotten your reading glasses.
Exactly, like me, exactly. The 50-year-old eyes.
Or mobility, somebody who's significantly physically disabled, through to women when they're pregnant. Actually, they begin to really struggle with mobility the later the stages they get into it. So for me, it really struck a chord around, or like if you've broken your leg, or like, I don't know, like you're temporarily experiencing a disability,
chronic pain, or
and it really kind of hit home, being able to talk to our stakeholders about inclusion from that perspective, that if you can design for everybody, then no matter what your customers go through at any stage in their life, because the other reality was this aging population thing. So people, as they age, increasingly experience more of these barriers, and because of the aging population across the world, we're going to need to design more inclusive experiences to keep up with the pace of the aging population as well. So so it's really great to see just like brilliant examples like yours, Stina, of how you're bringing this to life. And
I think if I can just put an extra little twist on what I said, I think the concept of doing universal design for some feels foreign, and that's why I just like to frame it in a way where, think about which customers would have the hardest time going through this challenge, map their barriers, because then you're already a step closer to universal design. And the other thing that I think is important is that with AI, I don't know how to say that in English, but like rolling out over everything, there's a lot of companies that then say, oh, how can we use this technology to, be more effective, be more something? But how can we use this technology to make our company more accessible to more? So you can have a chat bot, you can have this and you can have that. But if you're a company who, for instance, deliberately chooses to not have a phone number, or not have an email, or not have a chat, there are people, it's not just about preferences. Sometimes people can have significant barriers to calling a stranger, or they can have significant barriers to writing. So when you don't provide a variety of channels to contact you, you are essentially shutting some people out for whom it isn't just a preference, but a need in order to actually contact you and ask you or buy from you.
Yeah, I remember a similar situation back in my supermarket days, and they wanted to basically phase out telephone ordering for online groceries. But when they
Mm.
looked at who was actually using it, it was like elderly people who weren't digitally capable. So if they were to remove that part of the service altogether, they wouldn't be able to get their groceries. They couldn't come into the stores anymore because of significant physical impairments.
Right.
But yeah, like, but being proactive, I think, about inclusion is the difference,
Hmm.
isn't it? Rather than making a decision and then seeing the knock-on impacts and excluding a whole load of customers, being able to intentionally design for everybody means you've got greatest access to the widest customer base, no matter what, haven't you?
Yeah.
So thinking about your work has helped make customer experience more inclusive. We've heard some great examples already today, but what drives your commitment to equity and representation, and what progress would you like to see happening across the industry next?
Mm. So what drives me is when I did those interviews I talked about for Copenhagen Airport, which was obviously about, how you with different types of disabilities, visible and invisible, experience that customer journey.
Mm.
Something that struck a chord that went across all of those was the burden of having to explain yourself because you're different and you behave or you have needs in a way that people don't expect. That struck a chord with me personally, and it's a different subject, but being LGBT plus, I'm married to a woman. Having to explain yourself and the burden of experiencing that, and also sometimes in customer experiences there's a way to assume me that my wife is my mom even though she's just 4 years older than me. Like, it's not probably business critical, but it did make us not want to get dessert that day.
Mm.
But so it struck a chord with me in a personal way, right? That there is something that goes, like the othering that goes across anybody who is minoritized is pretty much the same. So I've recently done interviews with neurodivergent professionals, with professionals that have a different ethnic background, and with people that are neurodivergent. And so there are threads that go across in the employee experience and the customer experience. So it's not like you have to design your experience for 18 different parameters and how can we serve everyone if we have to specialize. But the one thing I think that I've found, and that I just think is such an important point, is that, for instance, let's take an example. If you can design an experience that doesn't give cognitive overload to neurodivergents who often experience a cognitive overload. So I have ADHD myself as well.
Me too.
Yeah, and so if you can design an experience that makes me go through it without stress,
Mm.
the days when somebody else goes through stress, it can be because of grief, divorce, lost a job, dealing with a difficult diagnosis you just learned about. Your cognitive overload is also closer to kind of the top, right? So your ability to navigate with ease or understand things that aren't maybe set up in a logical order, it disappears a little bit when you're overloaded. So if I can get a stress-free experience any day, and honestly, I think that's why I've been such a great customer experience manager, is
Mm.
because the bumps that are small for other people, they feel larger for me, so I spot them.
Mm.
So if you can smooth them out for me, you smooth them out for everybody. And the same
Mm.
in employee experience. If your employee experience can be stress-free for those coming to work every day with elevated stress levels, because the world wasn't designed for our brains,
Mm.
on any day where everybody else goes through something that's difficult, it can even just be you just gave birth and you're not sleeping so much, that those accommodations become enablers, not just for us, but for anybody, right?
Mm. Yeah. And I suppose that's like just one top tip, isn't it? If you were to look at your customer journey, take those lenses of different disabilities, or I think that neurodivergent one's a great example.
Mm.
Or listen to the voices of customers who are different.
Mm.
There's going to be so many opportunities to improve your customer experience
Yeah. It's a
that you
great
might not have
design principle.
spotted. Yeah, it is a great design principle, but I think that's the point, isn't it? That like inclusive design has to be intentional, and you need those principles to be able to design better. But being able to, where would we start with this? Could be, okay, let's look at our customer journey through the lenses of the different disabilities. Could be
Yeah.
a great starting point for, well, how could we make it better? So the judges were particularly impressed by the way that you link inclusion to positive business outcomes for companies that take that time to learn about hidden disabilities. This is a very clever way to engage others, they said, and to show them how it will benefit the company rather than just saying embracing DEI is the right thing to do for society.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
this is really close to my heart as well, because I'm always getting challenged with, oh, why women in CX, or why women in leadership, or why women in tech? Why is it so important? But there's a clear demonstrable value that's been proven that if you have greater diversity in your leadership, in your teams, that the business outcomes are clear. But can you tell us a bit more about how you do that and how much of a difference it's made?
So I'm going to link back to the interviews I did for the airport, right? So someone said to me in an interview, I would never go and buy a cup of coffee because he was deaf. I have a deaf accent. So, being treated like I'm an idiot every time I open my mouth because I sound differently just has created such huge anxiety for me. So I skip it. And like I said before, there wasn't one of the people I interviewed who didn't in one shape or form say I don't fly or I don't buy.
Mm.
Obviously that you can transfer to many other sort of business to consumer businesses, right? And then I started, at the time I felt I had my career under control, and the airport won great prizes for, parts of what I was involved in. And, so I felt I was really good at, delivering business results from designing great customer experiences. And then I realized maybe not so much, but I was still feeling quite full of myself because, it's not that many, obviously. And then I spoke with the Knowledge Center on Disabilities, who is like, well, 1 in 4 has a hidden disability. 1 in 4. Okay, so it's not all of them, of course, that might have accommodation needs or might need us to think about things differently to have a great journey, right? So if we're just conservative and say if we could get 25% of the 25% to buy like a 3-pound coffee, and now it's probably more expensive, right? If we could get 25% of the 25% to just buy like that 3-pound coffee because we reduced some friction in the journey. That's a lot of money when you have 30 million passengers per year. That's a lot of money. And you can flip it around and say, okay, if you have a call center, if your customer experience is not like where people are walking through your spaces. So let's take an insurance company. How many repeat calls do you get because your communication isn't clear, or because somebody has a hard time maybe voicing what they need over the phone, or isn't able to write you in the chat bot, or, whatever. You can think of it in that way, where, if you attune yourself to these needs and tendencies, then you will see increased efficiency, and you will see, lower levels of frustration. If you have frontline employees, that amounts to conflicts, which amounts to dissatisfied employees who are not being retained and leave. So there is like a whole, there's a whole plethora. Do you say that in English?
Yeah, plethora. I love that word. That's a great word.
Of different types of benefits. Now, to say like, oh, there is this and that specific benefit would be would be arrogant of me, because I would have to know like your business and what is it and where are the exact barriers, right? But if you start to look at this, you will see so many different types of benefits apart from just, okay, it's, we're doing the right thing. Yes, you are. But I mean, it's logic, right? Better accessibility makes for more customers walk in your door. So it's, it's almost sometimes when people ask, what is the business case with accessibility? And you say, well, 1 in 4 has a hidden disability. Then there's all of the people that have some kind of mobility challenges. It can be a specific disability, but it can also be, I've had back pain for some time where going to the supermarket for a length amount of time, I can't necessarily, right? So if you start designing for that, the business results are there. And it's also great to actually do something that makes the world a more accessible and welcoming place for more people.
Yeah, totally agree. That's definitely a theme coming through here, isn't it? It's kind of shifting the focus from what people perceive to be edge cases as a small proportion of people with disabilities to actually 1 in 4 with hidden disabilities. At some point in everybody's life, you will likely to experience something that puts a barrier in your way, whether that's back pain, pregnancy, forgetting your glasses.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of widening that scope for how many people does this actually affect. It goes from being kind of edge case, doesn't it, to being actually a significant
Yeah,
population.
I have this phrase that I use a lot where I say if you design for the edges, you can win the whole market, because if you're accessible for those who experience the most challenges with the experience that you provide, if your door is actually open and the journey is smooth for them, more people can come in.
Yeah, widening that door. I like that.
No, and if you think about it, so 1 in 4 has a hidden disability, but so 20% are neurodivergent, and 7 to 10% are LGBT plus, and in Scandinavia, 15 to 20% of our population are of non-Scandinavian descent. So some speak fluent, but some have arrived, and other people are arriving from So if you start to think about what are the common traits amongst those groups and start there to improve there, your experience is going to be so much better for so many more people.
Yeah, that's like kind of all these overlapping, intersecting circles, that isn't it, that cover much more of a significant proportion of the population. Sorry to interrupt your listening, but I just wanted to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about Wix. We're the world's first online membership community for women in customer experience. Our mission is clear, and that's to unleash the power of women to lead the future of human-centered business. Working in CX can feel lonely at times. We're often single-handedly trying to change the way organisations think and behave about customers. On our paid platform, you can discover a vibrant tribe of fellow female professionals, find support from knowledgeable peers, learn best practices from experts and practitioners, and be inspired to up your game through leading-edge CX and EX thinking. If you feel like you aren't making enough progress with your CX objectives, are unsure about what your next move looks like, or struggling to achieve your career ambitions, you're not alone. To learn more about membership, see how women are progressing personally and professionally with the support of the #1 community in CX, you can apply to join us today by visiting www.womenincx.community/membership. I really hope I get to see you there soon. So you've recently launched Incluso Nordic, a community-powered platform co-created with Nordic NGOs. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you developed this and share your vision for where you hope to take it in the future?
Yeah. So the idea for this originated. So I was involved with the Hidden Disability Sunflower for 3 years, rolling it out over Denmark. And I could just see so many overlaps with, the LGBTQ experience, et cetera, when I spoke with people that had different hidden disabilities, et cetera. And I really wanted to, it started from a desire to make training videos targeted at companies where inclusion was seen in a broader spectrum. So many companies want to do the right thing, but there are so many different offers out there that are specialized in one specific thing, right? So organizations that are specializing in LGBT plus or in ethnic minority or etc. And I was like, what if we could bring it all to one platform where we make training videos that give just a basic understanding of, what are the major barriers, and then also use this platform as a way to amplify the voices of the NGOs. So really showcase some of the great work they're doing and how companies can benefit from it in different ways. So that's how the idea originated, that I kind of wanted to take my customer experience background, think of the companies wanting to do right in their customer and employee experience in terms of inclusion, etc., and create one space where the people it's all about are the ones making the content, because there is a lot of, in the inclusion space, at least in this country, there is a lot of people doing a lot of work about those people, speaking about people instead of speaking as those people, and having that more inclusive take on inclusion, right? So I wanted to really create this learning platform where it's the people that it's all about who are teaching you and telling you about what would be a great thing to consider and what would be great things to do, right? So I'm doing monthly webinars with different themes, and sometimes it'll be one of the NGOs speaking about some of the stuff they're doing and how they can help companies solve problems in particular ways. So yeah, I mean, that's how it originated. And where I want to take it is, right now I'm producing those training videos. My first ones are coming out in November, so they will be focused on employee experience first, because every company has employees, right? And so it'll be like short training videos where it is people that I've interviewed who will say what barriers do they encounter, and then there are, obviously solutions attached, right? And so when they come out, what I want to do is, there is a free membership that'll always be free, because if it's expensive to do inclusion, it's not very inclusive. And a lot of companies want to do it, but they don't have a D&I department. So there's going to be always this like free membership tier where everyone can come in and get inspired and get free learning. And then there's the next tier, which is you subscribe to these training videos and, you get some tools and solutions on top. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
I felt that was a very long rant about.
No, not at all. No, it's just asking you how you developed the platform and your vision for where you hope to take it.
And so I haven't onboarded all of the NGOs right now. Like, we've been in a pre-launch phase. So right now I have 3 Danish NGOs that I work with and have dialogues with, but I'm expanding it as like throughout the next year. I'll be onboarding Finnish and Norwegian and Swedish NGOs as well to really kind of,
make it truly Nordic.
And also we can learn so much from each other across sectors. And what if all of those different, organizations got together in the bus and drove it together? We would go faster than we do sitting in each our little, vehicle. And I think it was also a little bit of a rebellion thing in terms of where the world winds are blowing right now with everything that's, coming out of the States. I've been like, I gotta secure the puddle that I have here, where we have we're probably one of the areas of the world where LGBT plus people have most rights, where there's, a bigger spotlight on those types of issues. And I was like, we got to get together in this bus and show the world how to do it right, and that this is business, and that, being inclusive takes us to results. So that was my kind of, I'm getting back on my activist horse here.
Yeah, and it's so important, isn't it? I think, women in CX, we felt it massively, like this rollback on DEI, this like kind of actually anti-woke rhetoric that basically, if you're not a white middle-aged straight man, all of that work that was done over years to equal the playing field is gradually being taken away. The kind of Christian nationalist movement that's happening over there, that's having such a terrible impact on, as you mentioned already, women, LGBTQ plus people, people with disabilities, people who are socioeconomically already hampered, taking away a lot of the support that keeps people that are already on a lower playing field economically even further down. It's terrifying. And we felt it at Women in CX with like companies pulling funding for memberships, sponsors who'd advocated for DEI while it was a popular topic, now saying actually that's no longer something that we wish to visibly support, because actually the way that the movement is happening over there is actually that being perceived as potentially negative. And I felt the same. It was like, what do we do? Do we like pivot, or do we double down? And like you said, securing your own part of the world where you can influence and continue to do something. I think it's become a bit of a rebellious thing for me as well. That we're not going to step back. We're going to push even harder, because that is what the world needs right now, is people that continue to stand up for what they believe in, stand up for marginalized groups. And I'm just so proud to be seeing you here today winning this award, because you're absolutely doing that. And sorry, I got on my little high horse. I'm not going to apologize for it, but definitely that was a moment of reflection on how
it was good reflection.
But
if I can just like here, obviously you should never do statistics based on just like your own experience here, but I'm going to do it a little bit anyway. So I think what has happened with the winds blowing is that it's given more energy to some of the people who maybe kept some of their viewpoints to themselves before. So I'm talking about, social media comments, etc. I mean, it's never been great, but it's not better now. But I have personally felt I have never been as busy in my career as this past year, because I feel companies are like, no, we're going to stick by this. We really want to do. So I feel there's also companies that have had the opposite reaction to it, being like, no, we're not absorbing that here. Obviously, it's complex for global companies because, if you have a lot of business in the States, there are different things that can make it difficult if you're very loud on especially your LGBT plus drum, right? But I felt a lot of companies have been even more adamant to be like, no, we're going to show that we stand by this. So that has for me been honestly quite uplifting, because I have felt the dread of watching news and seeing what's going on. And I just hope that, we can like keep the, what do you call it? The thing, the tents are stuck within the ground.
Poles?
Yeah, I hope we can keep the poles down during the storm, and stay our ground. Sometimes translating, image, like when you say things in images, it doesn't go through so great when it's from Danish to English. But I hope you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, and I absolutely love it when we're having a Danish-English translation moment. Hilarious. So final question really from me is, if you could give any words of advice to any of our listeners who want to make inclusion part of their CX strategy, what would that be?
Listen to the people you want to include. I mean, obviously you can research a lot of stuff about what would an experience barrier be in this type of, business, etc. But like when you map a customer journey, depending on what type of business you are, different types of diagnoses or disabilities would be, interesting to look at. But like if you can design your customer journey for someone who's autistic with ADHD, has a visual impairment, and who's dyslexic, then you're already quite far in reaching, anybody who's just above 40 in terms of visual impairment, anybody who might be cognitively overloaded and not being able to read like complex text, anybody who needs stuff in a logical order because they are overloaded. So I think, there's nothing special to it. It's used the same tools, but like look at it through a different prism. And I usually say looking through the lens of neurodiversity isn't bad, because some of the barriers they encounter are encountered by many different types of diagnoses and disabilities, but also, just people that are generally overloaded from, like I said, grief or life, whatever, right? So it's not bad to start there if you want to know, like, what prisms should I look through? There's like 80,000 different things, but that's not bad. But depending on what, like, do you have much written communication, or depending on your business, that would vary. But so give that a thought. Scramble all your personas and make one who is a combination of all of the things that might encounter the worst barriers in your business, and then you're well on your way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, just to bring that point home, just when you start research, ensuring you have representation is critical, isn't it? And like you said, I just remember so vividly thinking everything's great in our customer journey, but when we pass those prisms over, those lenses, and it was just a radically different experience. Depending on what you're kind of measuring your experience on and who you're asking, it can look incredibly different if you're not including, or if you are including people who have barriers. And
I mean, we're really in the core of what I feel is like how to deliver business results with customer experience is you eliminate the friction. Like every bad experience you deliver, you look at it and you figure out how to improve that, right? So that's it's the core. And so if you really seek out when does it go wrong, then you're just continuously improving and you will end at the excellence level. But far too many companies are thinking in, oh, we need to delight our customers, or we want to create magic moments. No, you got to clean up, and you got to start the furthest down where it's most dirty, and like improve it a little, build it up and improve it from there.
Yeah. And I think my summary or takeaway from this conversation is just that reminder that intentional, inclusive CX is just great CX. And as CX professionals or people leading that, if we could be conscious of that fact, we're going to improve everything for everybody. And not just it's the right thing to do, but it's also the right thing to deliver better business outcomes as well. So that's it, Stina. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Inspiring Women in CX Award Winners podcast. I'm so proud of you. We've been kind of in tandem on our journeys of community, haven't we, over the years? And just seeing you going on to apply all of your learnings into this new program with Incluso Nordic, I'm just so proud of you. So very well done. Congratulations. And I can't wait to see you in Berlin.
Yeah, I look forward. Thank you so much for inviting me. And also thank you so much for doing the conference in Berlin. I can't wait. And I think you made me blush. I'm going to drink a little now.
Big love. Take care. See you next time. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Inspiring Women in CX Award Winners podcast with me, Claire Muscat. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review, share your thoughts, or pass it along to your network. It really helps us to grow and amplify the voices of women working in CX and technology. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. The bigger our community, the greater the impact we can make together. That's all for now. See you next time.